listener production.
Hello, it's Sacha Barbour Gatt. Welcome to the Weekend Briefing, where we chat with the people behind the headlines. And my guest today is someone who has managed to build one of the most successful careers in comedy, not only spanning radio, TV and podcasting, but also generations. Your parents might have tuned into him on Triple J Breakfast. You might have first watched him host Gruen when you were in high school. And now you could be one of the tens of thousands of people who tune into one of his three hugely popular podcasts each and every month. Wil Anderson, he's a household name. Just don't call him the ABC's Golden Boy or Adam Hills. That's something I quickly learned when we sat down for our chat, which covered everything from the never-ending news cycle to the meaning of life to the Sunday scaries. A little later in the show, as always, is the Weekend List with Helen Smith, where we recommend what to watch, see, do, eat and listen to. But first, here's my chat with Wil Anderson. Wil Anderson, welcome to the Weekend Briefing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Look, you've been referred to, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this comment, but as the golden boy of the
Adam
ABC.
Hills. As the guy who we all think is Adam Hills, as Aldi Adam Hills, as spare Adam Hills.
I'm pretty sure I bought my parents tickets to your stand-up show thinking it was Adam Hills because they were big Spicks and Specs fans, so it's an actual thing. But I did buy them your...
It's an actual thing that happens all the time. I mean, it happens to me on a daily basis. This is not a joke. This is a thing that, and people won't believe me. I've had people literally say to me, they're going, "You've only got one foot." And I'm like, "Oh, mate, I can show you the other one." And they're like, "I do not believe you. That's a deep fake. I don't know what's going on now." We don't even need to be in person. Someone emailed me this year to get me to do a favour to come and speak at their primary school thinking I was Adam Hills. And they emailed me at an address that I won't give the full address, but put it this way, my website is wilanderson.com and it's one of those emails that is something at wilanderson.com.
Yeah.
So literally you have to walk past so many red flags to get to Dear Adam.
Does that annoy you? This was not going to be my first question, but
sure.
now that you've brought it up, I mean, you know, poor white men or you poor things, but genuinely, does it bother you that people can't even separate you from another comedian with a completely different name and a completely different story?
Nah, I think it's funny. I think it's really funny. It makes me laugh all the time. Every time a new one happens, it amuses me. And also, I honestly will say this, and look, you can learn whatever lessons you want to learn from things that happen in your life, and it just depends on which bit of it that you want to focus on. So, was there a time in my life where it might annoy me that you're doing your own work and it's mistaken for someone else's or whatever? Probably. But it's so long ago, and it's mostly, for the majority of the time I can remember, it's been funny. And in the later years of my life, I've realised how much of a gift it has been, because there has been a few times in my career where I have had, reasonable success in different parts of my fields. And the things that come with that reasonable level of success are, I don't know, ego and thinking that you might be more special than you actually are because there are people around you whose job it is to make you feel like you are more special than you actually are. I've never really been able to fully buy into that because I know that half the time when somebody comes up to me to say that they like my work, they're not even thinking of me. So it's been an incredibly humbling reminder that, and by the way, it's a reminder not just of where I fit in the infrastructure, but also where someone as big as Adam Hills fits. They don't know who he is either. So it's a real insight into never letting your head get too big.
Well, it's a wonderful lesson to start with. It's not what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you because I've heard you referred to not as Adam Hill, but as the golden boy of the ABC. Now, you started in Triple J hosting Breakfast in 2000, and then you now host one of the network's most successful shows, Gruen. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the Australian media landscape more broadly across that time that you've been working?
Yeah, okay. So, well, it's interesting because the Triple J thing I loved, but it was so long ago now. I mean, last year, Adam Spencer and I did a reunion tour of 20 years since we finished. So it feels like an entire lifetime ago, really. There was, as a 19-year-old on stage at one of our shows asking a question about that time who was not born when we were doing that show. So the rest of the ABC connection It's funny that whenever I hear somebody say something like that, because I have so little association with the ABC. I'm on air 5 hours a year, It's not like, somebody who hosts like the ABC News breakfast show does double my output in a week of hosting that show than I do. So I actually have quite a small connection with the ABC and haven't really been employed by the ABC since Triple J. Like since then, I've just made these shows that end up being played on the ABC occasionally. So it's funny, that perspective, and it's certainly not one whenever my thoughts or comments about the broader media, they're never coming from a place of identifying as being, hey, here's an opinion that as someone who works at the ABC, here's what I think. I've always thought I work externally to that. I spent as much time, making a show on commercial TV, like, in the last year as I did, on the ABC. So when I speak about the changes I've seen in the media, definitely just not from an ABC perspective, from absolutely my own perspective is what I would say. Well, I don't know, like so much, right? Like, so what have I seen change in the last year? There has been like everything, like the internet changed everything. So I lived through that age that when I was at journalism school, I was studying journalism at the University of Canberra, it was still, TV and radio and writing in the newspaper. That was journalism and where it existed. And by the time I was on Triple J, I remember Adam and I one morning talking about this new company, Google, that had started, and they were going to have this capacity to search the World Wide Web, and you'd be able to aggregate all this information for the very first time in an effective search engine, and how that was going to revolutionize things. And it was Google that absolutely in that first place revolutionised the way that we accessed information, because there was a ritual to the way that our news and information was delivered to us back in the time that I was coming through. It was a daily dose, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the briefing is. A return, in a way. Your show is a return, in a way, to that idea of we want a daily dose of the news. We want a place that we can go to just catch up with the gist of what's going on in the world, what are the major things that we need to know about. You're trying to deliver that same style of package to an audience that maybe didn't grow up by sitting down and watching the 6 o'clock news at night. But in this age where Google came along, and then what followed Google, of course, was these social media companies, we suddenly were signed up to this idea, because their business was attention, that the news had to be 24 hours a day, and that we, as consumers of the news and information and entertainment, et cetera, had to be glued to it for 24 hours a day. It was almost like convinced us that it was our civic duty.
And what if it's on your phone as well? That's the other thing these days, is that it follows you everywhere.
So suddenly now, to fast forward to present day, how did we find ourselves here? We live in this age where we have all the information, like so much information. We have got to a point where this information was so widely available, and we're, look at this, it's all the knowledge in the world and all the people in the world, and we can communicate with all the people in the world. Isn't this amazing? This is going to bring us all together as human beings. We're going to be this shared consciousness because we can all speak to each other. But instead what it did was it put us all in our own little silos, and we have no central nervous system anymore, no shared experiences. We don't sit down. There's no water cooler moments anymore, because none of us are watching the same thing at the same time, consuming the same news at the same time, being advertised the same product at the same time. And it's all obviously connected, the infrastructure of those things. But at least at night we used to all be able to sit down and go, here is the news we are being delivered. And we can all have a discussion about whether we think it's valid or not valid, but we all know what everybody else is seeing. Now, two people can be sitting on the same couch in the same house, but if they're looking at two different devices, they could be being fed into that same home two very different versions of the world.
That's such a good point.
Was that an answer to
no,
what's happened to the media?
You've made me feel all existential. I need to go stare at the corner for a little while. Well, you studied journalism, so, I take from that you are interested in the news, and you were as a young man as well. Not that you're an old man or anything, but as a younger man.
Technically classified as an older man. It's fine. There are over 50s retirement communities that would willingly accept me as one of their own.
What attracted you to study journalism in the first place?
That when I was a teenager, stand-up comedy was not considered to be a job.
Okay, so it was a choice.
That's the real truth. I loved stand-up comedy, but I grew up on a dairy farm in country Victoria, Anderson's Road, where my dad still lives, 250 people. The first person I ever met who was a comedian was me. I there wasn't a role model in my local community or somebody who had done it that I could follow after. If you can see it, you can be it is a thing that obviously we hear a lot in relationship to people who aren't being represented. But there is a trickle down where everybody can relate that to something in their life. It is much harder to imagine yourself something if you've never seen someone who looks like you or sounds like you do that thing. I was lucky enough that, and this is the privilege that sometimes we don't, immediately recognise, which is I did have the privilege of turning on TV and my heroes, or Billy Connolly or George Carlin or whatever, they were white men and I was a white man, right? So at least I could see it a bit. I couldn't see anyone from around me, but the end result looked a bit like what I would look like when I grew up. So there was that element of at least the seed that was planted in my mind and imagination that could be something that I could do with my life. But there was no other indicators in the existence that I had when I was growing up that was a career that I could pursue. And I applied for some acting things, the Victoria College of the Arts and stuff, and was summarily dismissed as the hayseed from country Victoria that I absolutely was. And they were correct in their assessment. There was no way that I would have been, A, the right person to accept into those sort of programs, and B, ready for it, even if I had been accepted into it. But I was good at school enough, particularly the humanities side of it all, and I had an interest in news. We were a news family. Dad read the newspaper daily and we watched the news at night, and it felt like Dad was a person he's a farmer, but he was engaged in getting irrigation to the local area and local politics on that level of representing farmers, and we'd often have the local politician at the house as the farmers gathered to talk about some issue that confronted them. So we were surrounded by that stuff enough that I knew it was an important part of society. My grandfather had been the local mayor, and so in our family, engagement in the community in whatever level and caring about the community was very much encouraged. My family are all from the same place. They once tried to put me on that show, Who Do You Think You Are, where they find out where you're from, and they came back and said, they said, you wouldn't have loved my episode because it all would have happened within walking distance. I think that was the first one we couldn't even get an Uber trip,
Bob and Jane down the road, that's it.
yeah, totally. So my dad lives 500 metres from the house he was born in, so my grandfather built the road by hand. It's called Anderson's Road. The family tree is goes straight up, not many branches. So, but it was very much enshrined in the local community and your contribution to the local community. And I even remember the thrill of, the first time you kick a goal at local football and they print your name in the Hayfield News, which was just the, photocopied, local newsletter that would go out in the community. But there was some sort of prestige, and the comedy that I'd liked, Andrew Denton's The Money or the Gun or The Big Gig and things like this, had all been interrogating the world and social norms. And there was something about that I found very exciting. And journalism seemed to have that spirit as well, that idea of how do we get to the heart of what is really going on here, which was the thing that I liked about comedy. Journalism and comedy often exist in that gap between what is real and what we perceive it to be. And oftentimes good journalism is in between there and great comedy is in between there. You're looking at the gap between what someone is saying or representing themselves as being and what the reality might actually be, and trying to reconcile those two truths. One of them in a journalistic way, but one of them just in a comedic way. But those skills were all good skills to have as a comedian.
Around comedy then, I want to talk to you about the idea of policing what we can make jokes of and what we can, make fun of. It's not a new conversation, but I have noticed it bubbling away recently. There's been a conversation in the UK, a Taskmaster alum, Rosie Jones, who has cerebral palsy. She's talked about, if you're a white cis male, you shouldn't be making jokes about the trans community, and, you should stop and think before you make a joke about whether you're punching up or punching down. And it's that whole conversation around, do we need to have rules around comedy and who we can make fun of? What's your take on that conversation, having been around for as long as you have and been exposed to the range of people and places that you have been? Where's your perspective sit?
Well, firstly, so many thoughts really, which is the conversation always exists. That would be my first thing. It's existed every single moment I've been doing comedy for 31 years now, and there's never been a time that we haven't been having this conversation. Yeah, it's called woke now, or you can't say anything, but it was what happened to the larrikin, and it was political correctness gone mad, and it's always been this thing of what you can say and what you can't say. But there's never been a time where you could say whatever you wanted to say without there being any pushback or consequence. That's just the one flaw in this entire debate is we all, we're back in the, no, there was no back in the. There was never a back in that. That's the flaw. We can have the other conversation, but we need to rule out the fallacy in here that there was a time when you could say whatever you wanted to say without any consequences to that. That time never existed. One of the most famous routines in comedy is George Carlin's 7 words you can't say on television. Rodney Roode, of all people, was a pioneer for free speech in Australia because he kept getting arrested in Queensland for profanity, and they eventually had to change the laws to allow people to stand on stage and, say the words that I say freely now on stage. Like there were times when Rodney Roode, our great free speech campaigner Rodney Roode, was not allowed to say what he was wanted to say for other reasons, right? There's always been pushback. There's always been environments in which you can say things. There are words that I can say on Gruen if the show is on at 8:30 that I can't say if the show is on at 7:30. Like there are always restrictions around language and how we use language and where it is appropriate to use language. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I would say when it comes to jokes is good. Let's always have a conversation about what is and isn't appropriate to say. I think that's good. Language and jokes, they evolve, and so we should always be having a conversation about what is good. And I think it gets more complicated when people go historical, right? Like I think that we need to have a little bit more maybe empathy and kindness to people who transgressed like on language or topic or whatever in times when that was the norm of the rest of the society, To go back to an episode of Friends 20 years ago and go, look, in this episode of Friends, they say this thing that none of us would say these days. You're like, yeah, but I will say that was not them being very transgressive at the time. They were doing a thing that everybody in society was doing or approaching an issue or talking about something in the way that everybody in society was talking about it. I think that's less productive than more of like, what are we doing right now? And what is comedy like now? And what are the things we can and can't say now? Another one of the big myths at the heart of this debate is how much of it is just marketing. So, of course, we should advocate for like comedy is at its best when people can say whatever it is they want to say, I believe. And I mean everybody. If you say something, then you have the responsibility to just be able to justify or back up or stand by what it is that you say. And if you have gone too far, have the opportunity to learn from that, tell people why you think you've gone too far. These are all great things. These are all great things both in comedy and outside comedy. We want to grow. We want to learn. We want to evolve. I think it's great that we are having these conversations because it makes us have this. But there is a part of this conversation that is being cynically manipulated by grifters, right? If you looked at the top 5 selling like stand-up tours in the world last year, they're probably all called things like, you can't say anything more, cancelled, like, blah, blah, blah. Like the edgelord comedians, the ones who are constantly, Ricky Gervais just won the Golden Globe for best comedy special for Mortality. And it was the highest selling stand-up tour in the entire world. And all these materials about how you can't say anything anymore. And like, what the fuck? Like,
You're saying
sorry, but honestly, you're saying it and you're getting paid handsomely for it and people are loving and adoring it and you're being rewarded and awarded for it. Dave Chappelle, these people who always, I think some of these people are brilliant comedians or at least at some stage in their career have made brilliant comedy and they are all much more successful than I am. But the myth, the idea that somehow they are not being able to say what it is that they want to say, they are saying it all the time. They are branding not being able to say what you want to say as a marketing opportunity and then pretending to their audience that they're transgressing things that aren't transgressive at all because every single joke in every one of these specials is the same old boring schoolyard jokes that people here have heard for generations. So, okay, but it's marketing. Like we just have to remember that so much of the debate that we are having around what it is that you can't say is just marketing by people who are using it to sell tickets to their tours and their shows, etc. Is it good that we have the debates? Yes. I've had pushback against some of my material over the years, and sometimes I've agreed with it and sometimes I've disagreed with it, but I've never been worse for having the pushback and having to think about it. There have been things in my back catalogue that I stand by. There are things that are in my back catalogue that I would be like, I stand by that at the time but wouldn't do it now. And there are things in my back catalogue that I, on reflection, don't stand by at all. Like, I wish I hadn't said in the first place. So, all those things are true.
One of your podcasts, Wilosophy, asks guests, often comedians, but also other high-profile people, including the former PM Julia Gillard, one I particularly liked, what's the meaning of life? I'm curious to know, Will, what's a perspective from a guest that's stuck with you?
That's interesting. What I would say, honestly, I'm really grateful for it. You've caught me in the middle of, I think in 9 days we're doing 20 plus episodes of the show, and the show goes for a couple of hours each show. So I'm deep in the middle of, talking to people about the podcast and about what life is about. And one of the real things that comes up more regularly, so it's not just from one person, but it's more the pattern, is how much it changes from if I had this conversation with you this afternoon, or we had it on the weekend, after this, or we had it 6 months from now or 6 months before now, how we could have a completely different conversation. Or if I just asked the same questions, literally the same questions, but I'd ask them in a different order, how much even that would affect the way that your brain put together the philosophy of the show. The thing that I have learnt the most is that there is no broader connective tissue, but the connective tissue is that idea of you're only ever getting any of these people on the day that they show up. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned about the podcast. It would be unfair of me to go back and listen to any of them and say, hey, you said this 7 years ago. Why didn't you act like this in this occasion, and this occasion? Because you only got them on that day and had a conversation with them for 2 hours that day about what they were thinking in their life that day. That's the thing. And if you think about it with that starting point to any conversation, this is what I think about the topics that you are asking me here today. But if you ask me again half an hour from now, I might have some different thoughts and some better thoughts, or I might listen back to what I said in this interview and disagree with 15% of what I said. Greatest lesson I've ever learnt. I don't hold any of these, yes, okay, that's what you thought then. What do you think right now? What do you think today? Right now when we're having this conversation, how are you? What are we doing? How are you in the world? Because every conversation I had pre-2020, I mean, how would you hold anybody to any way they saw the world and their place in it before 2020 versus what we all went through as this collective grief experience that we had? It changed the world forever in ways that we apparently are going to refuse to ever talk about properly and deal with in any way. And so that's what I love. There's not a moment. I guess it's a cop-out answer in a way, what I've said to you, because you are, I guess, hoping for me to say this person said this thing and it blew my mind, And I can give you one of those. Briggs's answer to the question of life philosophy is, why would you take criticism for people that you would not take advice from? Great. Perfect. There. Put it on your cushion. It's one of the greatest things that'll help you in your life. But the biggest lesson that I've learned is that don't hold people to these things. It was just a 2-hour conversation, and if we had it again in a different day, it'd be a different conversation.
I was going through the quotes on the website because you've got little cartoons of cartoon images of the guests, and then what I take to be their take on life as the quote. And I was feeling really inadequate reading the profundity of some of those quotes and feeling like, oh man, I don't think I've ever had that deep of a thought in my life. But perhaps you were just catching them on a good day.
Well, also, the quotes on the art, which was from James Fosdyke, by the way, a brilliant artist, and the quotes, I mean, I think if we spoke for 2 hours, I would hope that we could get like a little pithy quote for the cartoon. and if we couldn't, then we probably wouldn't release that episode. If we couldn't find a quote for the cartoon, I'm not sure the rest of the 2 hours would really help at that point.
Yeah, there's got to be something good in 2 hours, right? I'll give myself that grace. Maybe I would come up with something too. You've been forthcoming in recent years about your battle with osteoarthritis and chronic pain and the changes that you've had to make to your lifestyle in order to treat that and to move forward in life with it. One of them being how much alcohol you drink. And I'm curious to know where you're at now with your relationship with booze, especially given the industry you work in and the people that you spend time around.
Well, it's funny because I don't drink anymore and I haven't drunk for, I don't know, 3 years or so, I suppose it's been, something like that. I don't know. It's like, I mean, actually, the truth of it is that I'm lucky that, and considering that I used to drink like somebody who, at some stage was going to be told they're not allowed to drink anymore, I was lucky enough that I just walked away with it without the scars that some people, carry with them in regard to that. And I'm very lucky at that because some people are in a situation where they don't have control over that. It's not a moral failing in any way. It's like, it holds on to some people more than it holds on to others. And, it is a blessing when you have tempted fate in such ways and been able to walk away without, too many scars from it. So I'm one of those lucky people who could have a social drink if I want to. So about, probably 8 or 10 occasions a year, a glass of champagne at a wedding or whatever. Like that is my alcohol consumption at this point in my life. For years, people would tell me that it would be amazing for my osteoarthritis. So, you get so many tips when you have something like I have, and particularly when you have it so publicly at a young age. You get a lot of unsolicited advice. And while everybody is well-meaning, it can also be overwhelming. People who have shared things publicly know, and it's often advice I give to comedians if they're going to do a show about something where they're going to share something personal, is are you ready for not just to share it yourself, but also for everyone to share their stories with you? Because you are opening up when you talk about something like this to other people being able to contact you and ask for advice or share their stories or offer you some advice or whatever it might be. And one of the biggest things I would get, not just from strangers, but also from doctors over those years would be give up alcohol. It's inflammatory and, it'll be the best thing for it. And I resisted that so much, partly because I like drinking and partly because I maybe didn't believe them, I think is probably the truth, or I just didn't want to believe them, or I was using alcohol to self-medicate, so the short-term benefits of the pain relief that it would have, I wouldn't think about the longer-term consequences of the pain that it might be causing me. And the most annoying thing, and this is so annoying to me, is that they were all right, because not drinking has been so much better for my hip pain. And it is not just the inflammation, because I still do other things that inflame the hips. I love bread. I can't stop. There are some things that I still should be doing in my diet and stuff to help with the inflammation. But it's the body awareness. So when I'm recording 3 philosophies a day, I'm sitting in a chair for 2 hours. We schedule them so there's an hour and a half break in between so that I can go for a long walk, and that allows me to sit back in a chair for 2 hours. When you're drinking alcohol, you're not planning your day like that. You're not making sensible decisions. If you do sit in an uncomfortable chair for 2 hours or 3 hours, and your body doesn't go for a walk for an hour and a half. It's just so much better for my health to have taken that out of my life. And I haven't missed it. And the great thing is, in the industry I work in, while it used to be so booze-fueled, particularly when I first started, and part of that was because it was non-professional. Mostly how you got paid was in alcohol, and therefore you'd be a fool not to take advantage of the alcohol, because the more you drank, basically, the more you were getting paid for the gig that you were doing. Whereas these days, because the industry has become at least semi-professional, it means that people treat it at least in a semi-professional fashion, which means that most of the younger generation who've come into it don't drink at all, or at least don't drink in their workplace. And so it's become a very easy place to not be a drinker.
You're touring again this year. You're continuing on with What You Talking About, Wil, which is an improvised show, so no scripts, no rehearsals, no organised bits. And you say, and it's the sell is that it's a brand new show every night. What inspired you to throw out the rule book for this tour?
A bunch of things, as always. No big decision is just based on one thing. But where I am in my career is part of it. It's I'm doing, I'd done 29, I think, or 28 or 29, like full length, written shows. And, at that point, you just, what am I doing next creatively? There's part of you who do that. I've been doing this show as one-offs and special events over the years, and people had really enjoyed it, and I'd enjoyed doing it. I mean, there's something amazing about just being on stage writing a show. It's great when I'm hearing the jokes for the first time too. That's pretty fun, and it certainly engages your brain in a different way. It's pleasurable to do. I'd never done it as a full run of a show, and I knew that would be more challenging than doing it as one-off events, and I wanted to challenge myself in that way. Crowd work, which is what some people call this style of show, which is talking to the audience and then creating a show, had become really popular online. And then there've been comedians like Matt Rife who'd made it into very big career moves, but their style of doing it, and this is not, people can do it in whatever style they want to, and I've seen many people do brilliant, very different things to what I do on stage with it. But the predominant style that was online was not the style that I did, but my management came to me because they're good management, and they said, hey, it's really popular online for people filming their crowd work now, and you do these crowd work shows all the time. Should we film them? And it made me think about it. And I thought, hang on. And this is not a judgment on anybody else who does anything any other way. All you can ever do is worry about yourself and what you do and why you make your own decisions. And so, my decisions and the decisions I make for me are not judgments on the decisions other people make for themselves. But it made me think about why I do those improvised shows. And the truth of it is that I do them to create a special experience for the people who came out that night, and only for the people who came out that night. That's the whole point of them. So the minute I put a camera in that room, that means I'm making that show for someone who's not even there that night, for someone to watch online and out of context and a little bit of the show. And I'm not saying that there isn't a value in being able to share your work to people who wouldn't be able to access it live, right? But these shows aren't for that. These shows are for the people who came out that night and came into the room. And it's not just, it's like I said before about in Willosophy, where I talked about the idea that if I asked 8 different questions, I'd get a completely different 2-hour Willosophy. In these shows, I might talk to 4 to 8 people in a show when there's a couple hundred people in the room. If I talked to a different 4 to 8 people that night, the show would have been entirely different. Or if I talked to those 4 to 8 people in a different order, the show would be entirely different. Because what I like to do the most is, the joke isn't going to be about the first person I talk to, then here's some jokes about the second person I talk to. I'm gathering ingredients that I'm going to combine together to cook into something unique that wouldn't have happened if you didn't come in and you didn't come in and I didn't talk to you and I didn't talk to you, because you all coming together to create this thing. It was a response to AI, first and foremost, which was, we live in a world where AI can do anything except being human. And what is the most human experience? To gather people in the room for a communal experience, a bunch of strangers, and give them something. I say at the end of the show, or at least I do sometimes say at the end of the show, that the point of the show is that everybody was a stranger when they came in, but now they have some shared stories. If they ran into each other in the street, they'd be like, oh, we were there the night that Steve told us about he's an emergency nurse, and that person, waddled into the ER with that cord hanging out of their pants, and he had to, you've got a shared story, you've got a bonded experience, and it wouldn't have happened if you all didn't take the risk to come out tonight and sit in this room together and share something with me and trust me to turn it into something that we all now. The greatest thing about, I did 78 of them last year, I'm doing 78 of them this year, and if somebody came up to me and told me the right thing, I'd be able to remember every single one of them. If he said, I was there the night that you talked to the woman in Melbourne about bird flu for 8 minutes. I was there the night that you talked to that 17-year-old girl about the fact that she'd leaked Anthony Albanese's phone number to the media. I was there the night that. I would be able to identify all of these shows from those moments that somebody shared with me in that show, and then we got to make into some comedy. I did it for a bunch of reasons, but the main reason is it's what I thought comedy was when I first started watching it. I thought somebody just went out in front of a room full of people armed with nothing but their imagination and tried to entertain them. And so it feels like the most basic form, but also the most challenging form of what I do, because it's writing on stage.
Well, I was going to ask as well whether you get the equivalent, I get the Sunday scaries before work thinking of all the things I'm going to have to do and how I'm going to achieve them. Do you get the equivalent of the post-show scaries with this particular show, because you're relying so much on what other people are going to say to you while you're performing?
No.
Oh, good for you.
No.
I would.
No. I mean, I get all sorts of, don't get me wrong. You could ask me about, again, this is the right, what lens are we looking at? This is the one area where I don't. If you ask me about my new touring show, whenever that would be, and we were talking at this exact time of the year about that, you could have asked me that same question and I would have said, absolutely. Here are all my pressure points and fears around my new show and what's going to work and is this the order and am I saying the right things and will it be communicated and is this even what I should have been talking about and why did I choose this and et cetera, and blah, blah, blah. And do people think I'm Adam Hills? Like, like whatever, right? But in this show, I think, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe we actually stumbled on it. This is good journalism. Well done. I think it demands you be in the moment more than anything and at a time when there's a lot of other things going on in my life that I won't go into, but that need to be not in this. And often when you're a creative artist, so much of your life is in your work in one way or the other. Either you're dealing with it directly or metaphorically. But at the moment, there are areas of my life that are affecting me but not mine to talk about or embrace or et cetera. But you do need to find a thing that you can do and can do well. And the thing about this show is it is not about me. I think we've stumbled onto it in a good way. And I think I've learned something from being here because I think it's because it's not about me. This is a time in my life where it's hard for me to really talk really honestly and openly about me so much. So I'm finding great comfort in being able to talk to my audience about them and share that and share bits of me through that, but in the safety of us all creating something together collaboratively rather than it being all my responsibility. So no, every time I ask a question, the stakes are not on their answer. I'm happy to work with whatever they give me. It can be the smallest entry. What did you have for breakfast? I'll sometimes ask someone just if they're nervous about, and there's no requirement for anyone to ever talk in one of my shows. There's I clearly have instructions at the start that give everyone the clear opt-out instructions and I respect them because, as I said, I only need to talk to a few people and I certainly don't want to talk to someone who doesn't want to be talked to. So if you explain that properly at the start, you kind of avoid the problem of stumbling into somebody who doesn't want to be involved in the engagement mostly anyway. And if they don't, I'll just find it a more gentle way to talk to them. Like I said, what did you have for breakfast or whatever? Let's just start talking and we'll take it from there. So, yeah.
It sounds like you're the antidote to maybe some of the edgelord comedians we were talking about earlier on. Can't think of comedians who have spoken so thoughtfully about their audience. So thank you for sharing that insight. I really enjoyed it. Wil Anderson, thank you for joining us on the Weekend Briefing and sharing your philosophy.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was Wil Anderson chatting with me there. And you can catch him on Tofop, Willosophy and Two Guys, One Earn. It's a lot of titles, but if you just search Everyone Relax, they'll all come up under that one heading. So check those out wherever you get your podcasts. Now it's time for the Weekend List, where we recommend what to see, watch, do, eat and listen. Helen, give us your first reco.
My first recommendation is a film that I just saw the preview screening or release, I guess, the other day, and it's called It Was Just an Accident. Now, this is a film that was made in Iran, and it's so timely with what's kind of going on in Iran right now with the protests and the brutal regime. But it's made by an Iranian filmmaker, Jafar Panahi, and his films are banned in Iran. And this film was shot in Iran without any official filming permission. So it's kind of quite amazing to watch because it follows a group of former Iranian political prisoners who face the question of whether to kind of have revenge on a man that they believe may have been their tormentor. So it's kind of this group of political prisoners who were all arrested at some point and tortured. And it's quite a reality shock, I think, watching it from afar, but seeing a film where the filmmaker, he's been imprisoned multiple times.
And so is this a documentary or is it?
No, it's a film.
Yeah.
It's an actors. They're all actors.
Okay, so it's a work of fiction.
Yeah, it's a work of fiction, but it's very real issues and real topics that are ongoing. And it comes out on the 29th of January and it's at most Palace cinemas. So it's boutique cinemas, but it's just such an amazing film to watch. Just seeing it being filmed in Iran by Iranian actors, filmmakers, storytellers that are telling their story and talking about the regime that we're hearing about in the headlines at the moment so frequently, unfortunately. But it's called It Was Just an Accident, and that's directed and made by Jafar Panahi.
Mm-hmm. Well, my first recommendation is pap smears. Now,
bit of a pivot.
But ladies, I know you hear the word and cringe. I know I do. But I was reminded literally last night on my TikTok scroll to book in to get my pap smear because Snooki from Jersey Shore posted, I know, it's a random connection. I'm a huge Jersey Shore fan, which I'm also rewatching at the moment. Watch it if you haven't. Season 1 OG. You'd never get TV like that these days. But Snooki posted that she had a concerning pap smear result and she was talking about just how important it is to just go and get checked. And, you know, I am unfortunately one of those, I'm talking to myself mainly. I'm one of those women who unfortunately has maybe put off doing it one too many times. And I just went, you know what? No, get it done. Book your appointment with your GP and stay up to date with them. We're really lucky now that you only have to do it every 5 years. So, you know, to have that peace of mind once every 5 years for a few moments of discomfort, ladies, get yourself checked. And also, if you need to do any sort of screening tests, there's lots out there at the moment. Make sure you're getting them done. Mammograms. There's the ones for bowel cancer as well for older Aussies. Once you're over 50, you've got to send your poo in. Do it, guys, because our health is our wealth.
Yeah, that is a great reminder. My next recommendation is the Australian Open. I mean, it's on right now. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? You can watch it at 9 now. So if you don't have a TV like myself, you can just log in 9 now and watch it for free, which I love. And I think it's just such a great thing to get around. Even if you're not obsessed with tennis, have a look at the schedule and, you know, your favourite players or the Aussie players that there's only a few left, to be honest. But I think the fashion that we've seen with Naomi lately, the buzz, it's really turning into such a great event. And I'm actually off to the Australian Open on Wednesday. So I'm so excited.
You're going to have an amazing time.
Yes, Mum is very excited. I've written up a little itinerary for us, so it should be good. But get around it. Big events like this in Australia, I feel like the more we can get around it, the more support we can, whatever it is, with sport, with arts, with culture, anything, the more we can get around it, the more we'll have of them.
Yeah.
So that's my logic.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, the AO's is peak Melbourne, such a Melbourne event. So yeah, whether you're there or whether you're traveling there like you, Helen, get around it. Good one. My last recommendation is, I know I'm at the forefront of this. Usually I'm a few weeks behind, at least. Sometimes it's months. Sometimes it's years. I'm at the forefront of this because I was walking through my local Coles and I was surrounded suddenly by this item and I went, this is new.
Yeah, it is.
Biscoff chocolate. Biscoff Cadbury. Biscoff blocks. Yes. Okay, so it's a block of dairy milk. This is new though, Helen.
I know I'm at the forefront. It's only been out there for a week or so, I think. It's not that old.
No, I bought 2 blocks because they've got a new release special.
And
2 for $10. Loved it. So good. And it wasn't overbearing. Like, it's not like, you know, I'll never forget Vegemite chocolate, which was just horrific. This is like...
It's horrific.
Did you not try it at the time?
No, I thought no.
It was bad. This is like, it's just Biscoff in all its glory, but it's also reminded me of something my husband is obsessed with at the moment, which is Woolies is doing a not Biscoff hot cross bun. It's a caramelized biscuit hot cross bun. He's obsessed with it. He's on parental leave with our son at the moment. Every morning he sits down when he goes down for his nap and has a Biscoff hot cross bun. He loves it. So get around Biscoff, guys, specifically the Cadbury chocolate though.
See, I've heard mixed reviews for that one.
Really?
Yeah, I know, which I thought it was great. But you just reminded me with the hot cross bun one, another side rec, there's Choc Mud hot cross buns.
I saw these.
At Woolies.
Are they good?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
They are so good. Heat them up in the microwave though.
Yes.
But I'm all for them. They must be terrible for you because it feels like you're eating a whole mini mud cake. But the middle is all squidgy and mud cakey. And guys, get around it.
Yum.
Let us know. Also, maybe let us know if you have a favourite hot cross bun.
Because that's the thing. It's not just fruit hot cross buns
Not
anymore. There's like
not
60
anymore, baby.
different variations.
There's everything you can imagine.
Hit us up at The Briefing Podcast. That is it. Helen, thank you so much for being here for the weekend list. And that is all for us today. We'd also obviously love to hear from you. If you enjoyed our chat with Wil Anderson today, I found him a terrific guest. He was very, very generous with his time. And as someone who's been around as long as he has, I really enjoyed hearing his perspective on a lot of things, including news, which was good to hear. Speaking of, the team will be back Monday, myself included, to bring you the headlines. And I wish you a pleasant rest of your weekend. Catch you next time.